Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
It's about time to call the July 17th Board of Education meeting to order. Is there any changes on the agenda? Everything's okay. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. We're going to move down to superintendent updates.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to move to the podium. Just want to make the board aware of a couple of things. Obviously, summer is a busy time for all of our different departments, but one of the things that's done each year is the student code of conduct is revised. It is also, that's based on input from schools, based on input from the community, based on input from our parents, and of course, legal representation as well. I just wanted to make you aware of a couple of changes and a couple of new rules. That this is not the entire student code of conduct by any stretch. This is just the new rules and the revised rules. I just wanted you to be aware of these. You have Rule 21, unauthorized use of technology devices. That has just been changed to include not only computers, but any type of technology, including student-owned devices, as we may move towards bring your own device and things of that nature. This is to give greater latitude and authority in dealing with situations that involve something other than a computer, so any kind of electronic device whatsoever. The old rule was pretty specific, and we tried to broaden it. Rules 28 and 29, again, these are in board docs. Alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. These two rules have been combined into Rule 28 together. The goal here is the same. One rule with multiple sections. It gives administration more authority and disciplinary power when dealing with items that should not be at school. It also includes talking about synthetics, paraphernalia, and the whole new world of vaping. Also, punishment is harder in place for illegal drugs as well as distribution, again, on the advice of counsel. And then two new rules this year, Rules 32 and 33 deal directly with school safety. 33 talks about the refusal to search, and 32 talks about the persistently dangerous students, and then Rule 33 is refusal to search. Both of these lay out more specific details about students who are either persistently dangerous or who refuse to allow searches by school administration. So this is just an effort to increase our safety and security. And I just want to make the board aware of those changes.
I have a question, Mr. Dunn.
Yes, ma'am.
It's kind of 33 and 21 at the same time about the technology devices, and I know the potential for bullying, harassment, etc. If we suspect a student has been either disseminating inappropriate content at school, or they are in the possession of it, can they refuse? Does the other rule come into their refusal? Because the refusal doesn't appear to cover, like if a principal or a teacher says, I need to use your phone, I want to see what's on it. Do they have the right to refuse? And if they do, is there a consequence, or is that covered in here? I'm not missing it.
It's covered. That falls under several different rules. Okay. Either insubordination. It also falls under our appropriate technology use program. Okay. That's not necessarily a student code of conduct.
That's all I wanted to make sure is that an administrator or educator would not be breaching any kind of law by demanding to see the electronic device. No, ma'am.
But the board policy addresses that as well as the other parts of the student code of conduct. All right. The second piece of information I want to share with you, I'm sure you're already familiar with the Career and College Promise, because we have a large number of students who are able to take dual credit enrollment through Beaufort Community College and get high school credit and college credit at the exact same time. But in addition to college courses, there is also now a program, and I'll go to the second page of this flyer, the Career and College Workforce Continuing Education Pathways. These are not courses as much as they are courses, but they're not coursework. They lead to credentials or certificates. And Beaufort Community College is going to be offering these. these will be, our students, in theory, would be eligible. This is a brand-new program. We're just kicking it off this year. This is not the same thing in the sense that there wouldn't be distance courses. I mean, these are going to be taught on the campus of Beaufort Community College. In terms of details, if these would be taught during the day, at night, those kind of details haven't been worked out yet. In terms of fees, at this point, the fees would still be on the families or students who participated in this. This is not the same thing as students who the board pays for college textbooks. But I just want to make you aware of this program because you'll be hearing a lot about it this year as it gains a little steam. And then the last update that I just want to give you, in terms of the Washington High School soccer complex, the Washington City Council did approve the site plan that was designed for the Washington soccer complex. So we are full steam ahead in the sense that the site plan's been approved. The next step is for the different levels of work to be done in conjunction with Stan Hudson and our maintenance department. The athletic boosters continue to raise funds to pay for that work, and we're probably a couple weeks away, give or take, from starting the initial groundwork, whatever that may be. I know it involves a lot of different construction aspects, but the good news is, if you remember our last board meeting, we talked about going before the city council, having the site plan approved. That was approved, so we're moving right along. Okay?
I hear you did a great job.
It was a very large.
In the room.
It was a very large crowd.
Yes, it was.
I don't know if the difference were my comments or the 300 plus voters. I don't know which one really swayed the city council, but so I will turn it over to Stan.
Here is what we have before you tonight is asking for additional funding for the Southside High School chiller. I know you started this way off this year right to start with asking for additional funding, but once we got into the project and trying to get everything underway, we realized that they did not include the circulation pumps, the 3 circulation pumps in it. So we had them go back, Pete and I had met with them at Southside, had them go back and resubmit their prices to us. Everything here has been pre-negotiated through National Joint Alliance, which is a government, state, and local government purchasing agency. So all of our prices are pre-negotiated. That way we can expedite the project a whole lot faster than writing an RFP and putting it out before everybody. But the current project, the way I would recommend it was we put the same chillers that we had before and everything, but adding the pumps, which is on the Piedmont service group page. The price down at the bottom, including, it says price with 3 chillers associated with pumps, and that's associated equipment, which would add $27,840 to the total project. And myself and Mr. Doan had talked, and really the only way we could do it now without going back to the county would be to decide on to do away with potentially or take some money from another project. And my recommendation, and of course it's up to y'all, would be to take the $14,000 from each of the envelope projects, being they're kind of an open project, and come up with the $28,000, $27,840, which rounded off to 28. So that would do it. But that would be my recommendation if y'all will see fit to approve the project as presented.
Are all 3 of them back? Why are we doing 3?
They're all in service, but they're the same age as the chillers we're replacing. So I hate to put new chillers with old pumps that are, they're there. None of them ever been replaced. They're many hours. They run every hour the chiller runs, so they've got as many hours as the 3 chillers do. So.
But they're working.
They're working, but.
I just want to make sure that we're not spending money on something that's just old, because I'm old. I don't want you to get rid of me because I'm old. I just want to make sure that we're being smart about it.
Down, and we have to have cold water at that school. It pumps the cold water through the school, so all right. It's the heart to the system.
Okay.
I mean, aren't you having some issues with them though?
We have had regulators and pressure regulators, and they've had to put seals in them, but.
Because Pete had called me.
That's right.
We were talking about, he said
now
they
is the
were
time.
running.
They're aged as much as the chiller. They sit out in the weather. You know, they're open to the elements. They all rusty, and they're
right. I mean, I was just trying to figure out, I mean, in response to what, you know, I kind of the same concern, but after talking to Pete, because he was having some concern with one down and running at 100%, that if we didn't get this contract worked out, we had we might have, he says right now, because of the way it takes the lead time, are we looking at October?
Yes, sir. We could probably do it before, but we do not want to do it while school's in, so looking at potential break.
I was just going to say, and he was saying that he wasn't sure one of the other ones would make it to October.
Yes, because we're down one. We've already
So they're
cannibalized
working, but
one
apparently
of the
there's
three.
something wrong.
One is after the service is no longer there. We're trying to keep number 2 running along. Robbing parts from number 3 to keep number 2 running every day.
That's what I was going to say. He told me he had already done a lot of work, as much as he could, to one of the ones that was. So, I mean, just to, because I had the same concern. They're running, but they're on a hope and a prayer right now, kind of.
One's been running to school, we're running one 24/7, running it. Number
But when
2's
kids
off
get
and
back
on,
in.
but we need to get something rolling so that we'll have conditioning when the kids get in school. And potentially, if we go and expedite it, they may can get one of them on site and get it put in, the one that's dead, the one that we've already cannibalized.
Okay.
Because we can put them in phases. They fit on the same pad, they fit to the same pipe, and they work on the same electric, so.
So this money, does that replace the pump and the connectors?
That pays the pump too, yes,
Because I
sir.
remember that's what he said was
Yeah.
not in the original.
Right, that was not in the original that we put together for our budget.
And I know we're talking about south side.
South side.
I'm gonna jump to north side.
All right.
Real quick, what did we decide at north side?
To replace the coils, instead of doing the chillers, to update the coils.
Okay. And money-wise, because I remember there was a big change in the money for that project.
$53,000 for the course.
To do the coils, yes, 50,000 for the coils, 3,000 for the free.
But we didn't have any, all that other, the original
Well, we've
price,
done
we
all that
repurposed that
contract,
already.
capital down.
It's already been done.
Consolidating, yes, sir.
That's
Yeah.
where I was headed.
Yeah, there's no money sitting on the table anywhere. There's a few dollars that Mr. Willis uncovered here recently, some closed projects, but it's very minimal.
Actually, it's a little bit more because of the ones that, the 17 projects.
Okay.
We have about close to $19,000 in your safe now.
Okay.
So if you want to hold that and keep the 14 for the other two, and use the 19 for overruns of some of the other projects, because I know Stan said some of the projects that we had originally budgeted were a little bit low, so we're talking on need to cover a couple of those as well during the year.
Yeah, well, you're never gonna get it exact, it's not an exact science, so.
And my point, and it may apply to some of these other ones, because money is so tight, there are some things that aren't going to be so student-driven that may have to wait because they may have age on them and be giving us trouble, but if they're working, we might need to limp along with them and wait till they just don't work at all, so that we have the money to do the things like what you're saying, which is student-driven in my opinion.
Right.
Like walk behind scrubbers and some things like that might be important, but if we have something that's working, we might need to limp along if we're that low on funds.
So,
Have
bottom
you-
line, what you want us to do, go ahead, but.
Have you confirmed this carrier quote? Because it's dated February 12th.
Yes, sir, it's the same. It's already pre-negotiated price with the state, with federal government.
Okay.
It doesn't change. It was negotiated back when they negotiated the contract, so they have to obligate.
Doesn't have a life expectancy on it?
For the year.
It says
Oh,
30
for the
days.
Fiscal year.
It says 30
Well, their
days.
quote
I
was
know,
for 30
that's what I was
days,
thinking, it
but-
didn't
yeah.
say a year, it said 30 days.
It's a
Don't come-
pre-negotiated through
Don't come back next week and tell you you're $10,000
National
low
Joint
again.
Alliance. And we're a member of National Joint Alliance. It's like U.S. Communities. It's one of the ones that's a pre-negotiated state contract.
Or,
I guess we're saying, right, Butch, we would feel better if you knew, if you just double check it, but I believe you, I'm just saying, like Butch, I saw where it said 30 days, so it does kind of throw a red flag. They do have a reason to come back and go, no, we said 30 days.
I'm sure your
We're
answer,
talking with them every day, so it's,
Good, good.
I'm sure your answer's gonna be yes, but these are much more efficient than what we currently have.
most certainly.
Because
They
you-
are really, really increasing it drastically. They're much quieter. It is a little bit larger footprint as far as the machine itself, but
Because you know, south side has always been a thorn in our side as far as energy costs. It's the highest in the county.
well, part of this big savings in this contract is through Duke Energy because they're banking on the savings and they're estimating that cost back.
there a rebate?
Yes, sir, there's a rebate.
There's a rebate in it.
Included in our price.
Oh, okay.
The $66,000 rebate on the two
Yeah.
225s and a 33,000, or really
About
$32,000 and $200, yes, in rebates back from Duke Power just because of some of that side of the river power provided by them. So that's a big energy savings and cost savings for the school system there alone.
Okay. Well, whatever the board says, I mean, we've been fighting these chillers over there for a while.
So do we pay this money up front, Stan, and then wait for the rebate, or is that going to be, when you say built in, is that going to
They do the paperwork, it's all included in our project, and we write the check for the total amount that's at the bottom of that contract,
Good enough.
once it's installed.
Okay.
So
Because that's a lot of money to wait on if you got to wait for it.
So what are we being asked?
Second. What are we approving?
We're approving the taking the 14 out of the envelopes? Is that what we're going, or back what he was just saying, using 19?
Well, I think I thought we're just approving doing the work.
Right.
Correct.
We're approving both.
But I mean, we're approving doing the work, but we're approving that extra money too.
Well, I think we're rearranging what you had originally said in the budget because the envelopes
Right.
would be reduced to shift those funds over to take care of the chiller costs.
Right.
And the 19 would be held in the future in
Still
case there are
held.
overruns for other
Right.
projects.
So the envelope, it's almost a fluid number, right?
That is correct.
Correct, yes, ma'am. Our plan was originally to hire an architect to come in to find our issues and develop us a plan to fix it. What monies was left is it would be start fixing it and be a multi-phase project through the
Right,
next
that's
couple of
what I
years.
thought. Yeah, that's,
I'm good.
We would affect that amount of work to be done, but we would still
They already
progress
made a
with the work at north side of the city. We wouldn't neglect them, right?
Butch or somebody made the motion.
But you did that. I second it.
We did have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposers have the same right. Motion accepted.
Thank y'all. Just to give you two little synopsis this week of
about
what we
capital
deal with.
budget attachment.
That was just in case you
Just in
wanted to
case
see
you had
the
questions
list.
about our current
Oh,
budget.
okay.
Yeah, but no change, yeah.
It was showing where we were taking the money from in case you had questions or if y'all had another idea.
Okay.
We had two major leaks in the past month. We found one at Washington High School again in a 4-inch water main. We fixed it last Monday, and then today we had one at Chalkwater Primary, a 2-inch water main we found behind the building. So maybe we'll find some of our water usage at both of those facilities. So
Chalkwater was a real high one too.
yes, it's been a high one, so
We use our own men to fix them.
yes, ma'am. Our excavator that we bought and use our men and had it back on in less than 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. So
How long has a 4-inch water main been leaking?
we don't know. There's no way to find it underground until it comes up on top. There's no test, so.
I would think if it was 4-inch, it would come to the top pretty quickly.
That's what I
Yes,
was
right.
If nobody's there, where was it?
It was between the auditorium and our boiler room. It was quite evident when we came in. It was all the way across the parking lot, but the week before, it had no water in the parking lot, but
Any evidence what caused it?
steel pipe and clay dirt. Not
Don't they
insulated.
still do driver's ed back
Compressed.
there? Maybe it wasn't going on, somebody would have seen it, or, that, I mean, they.
It's some of the same issues y'all had with the chiller pipes and stuff prior to me coming. They put steel pipe in the clay ground with no insulation, and it's just over the years as heat rolls through it. So just want y'all to give you an update on what we're trying to save funds.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
We're down to 4-2 with Mr. Dunn and Mr. McCarron with the revision of the current budget expenses.
Yes, ma'am. Mine has multiple content to share with you. Well, just so you know what is here, there was a list. One of the things that the board charged us to do at the last meeting was to go back and look at our local current expense and try to find savings so that we would not dip into fund balance to the number that we had requested. And so what you have here, this is a very long spreadsheet of the different budget codes and different funds that make up Fund 2, which is our local current expense. One of the things that I'm going to talk about is our fleet, as part of the savings, we hope. Another issue that I'm going to speak about is our unexpected maintenance costs, because the maintenance budget that's local is sometimes tasked with fixing or repairing issues that could theoretically be capital. And then finally, the budget revision. So I'm going to start with that. If you remember our last meeting, the original fund balance appropriation request was $508,479. Unfortunately, the budget is an ever-changing issue, and one of the things that I need to make very clear is that we as a school system are being restricted day in and day out by the state of North Carolina about how we flex it, how we're able to use funds. One of the things that good finance officers like we have are able to do is move money around. For example, in the past, when we were given money in the driver's ed fund, if there were remaining funds after driver's ed expenses were taken care of, then those funds could be moved out of driver's ed and moved into other areas, supplies, materials. There were allowable areas. That is no longer the case. So in the past year's budgets, we had about $45,000 of money left in driver's ed that we could move into local funds, spend on other items, still be within all the state rules and state laws. Well, since that flexibility has been removed by the General Assembly, that's $45,000 at our last meeting that we had not counted on. Same things happened with our state textbook funds. We're given a certain allotment from the state. In the past, you were allowed to move money out of those textbook funds at the end of the day and move them into other areas. That is something that we've done in the past along with every other school system in North Carolina. The state has, in previous years, has placed restrictions on funds placed in the allotments for AIG teachers, ESL teachers. What I foresee happening, there are already restrictions on teachers that teach PE, world languages, art, music, enhancement teachers. There are going to be more and more restrictions from DPI about not being able to move funds out of categories. So when we're building our budgets, that's something that we're going to have to take into consideration moving forward. This is not something that we had, unfortunately, the last time we met, but it doesn't help us because that's more money that we were counting on to be able to use that we no longer have. Lastly, unfortunately, in our last meeting, we did not have our quote on iReady program that we pay for the K-8 schools. In the past, we've been able to use some grant funding and some federal funds. That is no longer the case. Now, we're able to budget. iReady is a three-pronged program. You have a diagnostic prong that I sit down as a student. I take a test online 3 times a year. It is able to identify my areas of strengths and weaknesses in the areas of math and reading. That, fortunately, due to some good budgeting by the curriculum department and Mr. Carowin, we were able to have carryover funds in that line item from last year to take care of the diagnostic part. So that is paid for regardless. The remaining K-8 program, $89,000, there are 2 parts to that. And as a former classroom teacher, what happens with iReady is after the student takes those tests and it's individualized, and I know this is the area where they need to work on with math and reading, then the next step is, okay, where do I find the resources to address those issues? And part of that is called the toolbox. And that toolbox gives me a place to look, a place to find resources. Now, I have to then go and take and print those resources off. I have to use, it gives me the keys to work on their areas of weakness. I will also say that iReady is tied into the state's multi-tiered system of support when we're helping students to identify whether or not they'll be on the exceptional children track. iReady is also tied into the state EOG and EOC, so it correlates. So you're not taking a test on something that you're never going to see again. It is tied into what the students are going to see when they take EOCs and EOGs. The third component of iReady is actually the component where a student individualized can sit down and get practice assessment. So I can either enrich the areas where I'm doing well, or I can work on areas where I have weakness. But the price tag is pretty steep. So if you give me the diagnostic tool, what you haven't given me as a classroom teacher is, okay, now I know the areas, I'm on my own to go and find all the resources I can find to put them in front of the student to help. If we pay for the entire thing, I get those resources and I also get a place to have the students work on them. Now, if you ask our students, I think it's a mixed bag on how many of them enjoy iReady and how many of them don't, because it is a remediation program. I can speak to my own son, who was a 4th grader this past year, and there were days when I would hear great things about iReady and days when I would hear, oh no, not iReady again. So I think it depends on the area of whether it's math, reading, what your weaknesses are. But it's the best diagnostic tool we have that ties into the programs. And we don't have a secondary program. So we don't have another enrichment program. Schools, we went with iReady because different schools were buying different programs. It met the most needs, was the cheapest program we could find. Schools that are reduced federal funding have lost programs like Study Island, etc. So, I mean, it is a need. And I was told by curriculum to put the hard sell on you, so that's what I'm doing. But again, we have the diagnostic tool if we don't pay for the $89,000.
They don't like it.
I think
They
I
don't.
mean, yes, you get, absolutely get a mixed bag. There's no
Yeah.
question about it.
I don't even get a mixed bag.
You don't even get the positive.
I don't even get
You
the positive.
You get
They
the I
don't
hate
like
it. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
The
that's
kids
not,
don't- yeah,
that's not
the
a
kids-
question.
Yeah,
Right.
the kids don't like it, the
But-
teachers don't like it, so I worry that that's a huge expense for something that's, is it showing results, is it helping us?
well, my fear is, and I'll be honest with you, what I'm afraid is,
I don't want to go down the wit and wisdom road again.
well, but we've been using iReady for a number of years.
Right,
And
and
you-
but have we seen, that's my thing, we've been using it, but I've talked with teachers who don't feel like it's really done us any good. Now, is it the right program for us? You're saying, are we using it because it is the cheapest? Is it
Well, no,
the
we're not
best?
using it because it's the cheapest. I mean, you can certainly find, it's not the cheapest, but it is the most correlated with with DPI, which is the multi-tiered system of support, and also our EOGs and EOCs. So of all the programs you can buy, it's the one that has the most correlation with those two things. And we're an MTSS school system, so the diagnostic tool is key. If you're going to try to help, the point of MTSS is I want to help identify a student's weaknesses as early as possible to see if they're going in the direction of needing EC services or if they're not. And the idea is, if not, if at all possible, we don't have a screener or universal screener. We've got to have that part of it. And we have that part. That part's paid for. That's in the budget already. If we don't pay for the $89,000, the rest of it, what I fear is we have classrooms full of teachers who say, okay, you've given me this printout that tells me individually on every student in my room, these are their weaknesses. So now I'm on my own to go find whatever I can pull from the internet, from resources, from talking to the curriculum department, but I don't have any method. I mean, it's all on me now, or it's all on us to come up with how to address that. And in terms of the last part, most of our K-8 schools have a rotation set up where students, one day is media, one day is music, one day is art. A rotation that they use for remediation would be, and they even do this at the middle school level, you use iReady for that because it's targeted to their weaknesses. And I know the complaint that I hear, like from my son, of course, is that the areas that he's weak on are the areas he doesn't really enjoy. And so he's spending a lot of time doing stuff he doesn't really like, but that's part of the reason why he's weak on it. And in the past, schools would buy different programs. I mentioned Study Island, there are a couple others. They don't have those programs anymore, partly because we've gone to iReady, partly because they're just funding. They can't pay for them. So I'm not saying that the world will end if we don't have the other two components, but what I think we'll have is a lot of folks saying, okay, now you've given me this printout and now it's all on me to go find it and there's no other help. What's my other help? And I do think there'll be that. I also understand there's some schools that when I ask principals, because what I wanted to know, if I'm going to stand up in front of the board and say I've got to have $89,000, what I don't want to have happen is principals say we should have never spent that money. So what I hear from our principals, the principals who like it, the principals who don't like it in the sense that their teachers don't like it, say that at least for their lowest level students, their 1s and 2s, that it's the best tool that we have for them. And they may not use it with their upper level students. But in terms of a payment, we can get a better deal, all or nothing, versus just part for this school and part for that school. So I don't disagree with you that there are plenty of people who say, you wasted your money, don't do that.
Well, and I've heard from different teachers who, it's not that they don't like the program as much as what the program requires many times is computer access.
Right, it does.
And they don't have that.
That's right.
In your larger elementary schools,
you have to be very
get
creative.
a computer lab one time a week.
Right.
And there's maybe one working computer, and I've had teachers say, I brought my personal one in because I've got 2 or 3 kids who, in order to be successful, have got to go on this program to use it, and there's no access to one. So,
I mean, any program.
it's great to have access, but if you don't have a computer to do those programs,
Right.
we spent the money
It's
on
all
something like,
online.
yeah.
It is.
It's all-
But I mean,
It's all online. There's no materials they can,
That's
Right.
correct. But I mean, that part of that is saving on printing out things. And,
Sure.
But, I mean,
But the
certainly in the
bottom
will of the
line
board, I mean,
well, I have my concerns just about
right.
a program that we're not equipped to really implement at its finest, but I don't have another option. I just wanted to bring that
Sure.
concern.
I mean, I've gone back and forth with our folks
I know.
in the curriculum department and in at school level about, because the last thing I want to do is put something on here and then we say, oh, we should have never spent our money on that. So,
I talked to a 4th grade teacher who said, it really does address the needs of my students that are low performing. But she said, just what other ones? She said, I have access to computers once a week, and I go in there, and usually there's only, out of 20, there's only 15 that work. And then you're going to have to put at least those low-performing students at some of those that work, which means the kid that didn't get to use a computer now will wait a whole nother week to get that access.
Sure.
And I don't know another way around that. We certainly can't afford more computers yet. I know there's some in the technology budget, but that's more for testing, right?
Well, they can be used for both. I mean, we've talked to some of our principals. I say we, Andrea and I'm pleased to say, I should have included this in my updates. Andrea Lilly is now able to be working back with us on a part-time basis. So we've talked to some of our principals about some of that is truly scheduling and making things more flexible and not using the same old rotation where you only go to computer lab once a day. But some of it is absolutely, no matter how flexible you are, no matter how try you schedule, your computer systems just aren't up to par. So, I mean, it is absolutely both.
Or you're a large elementary
That's
school.
right. That's
and
you just don't have the numbers.
You don't have the numbers to support them.
That's correct.
Okay.
You mentioned wit and wisdom. A question that's been asked of me, because I've been getting some calls for some teachers too, because obviously we have a lot of teachers that must work over the summer. I didn't realize how many of them.
Probably quite a few of them are.
I didn't realize how many of them must be working over the summer.
I would think a lot of them are summer reading camps, probably.
Is that where, maybe that's where it's
Yes, sir.
coming from?
Good to hear those go on.
When we started in with Wit and Wisdom this past year, and I know there was a huge purchase of over, well, a few $100,000.
Sure.
And you're probably not the right person to ask, but you might know.
Okay.
Is this, I mean, is there additional cost each year for that?
My understanding is that there were some replacement books that needed to be ordered, but I don't know the actual figure.
Right.
But I don't think it certainly wasn't like the whole, purchasing the whole set all over again.
No, I wouldn't expect it.
I just think there were, I can't remember the exact details, but I got the impression that, yes, we were buying some more books to go along with it, but not to the level of the initial purchase.
Okay, because that's what was concerning a little bit, because I remember when we visited that, the board kind of left it, I remember the last message that our former superintendent sent out was it would be used as a resource.
Correct.
And that was fine, and everything calmed down and we moved forward. But now I've had a number of ones telling me that as the pacing guides are coming out for across the county, that the pacing guides is all based strictly on wit and wisdom and not something else, which doesn't sound to me like that's a resource.
Well,
it sounds like it's a directive.
I don't know about the pacing guides.
Well, what I'm saying is, but I'm just saying, because if it is, then I was wondering, would that mean we're buying more materials?
I don't know that we're buying any more materials. I would have to check on that beyond some I took replacement books to mean that there were certain books that either got damaged.
We probably do that every year anyway, right?
Things like that. I didn't.
Yeah.
And I think there were maybe a series or two that we didn't buy that go along with the program, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
As far as the pacing guide, I can't speak to that, but in terms of the principals understanding, to my knowledge, they understand, and I can reiterate when I see them tomorrow, that it is a resource. I know we have principals who believe strongly in it, and we have principals that don't believe strongly in it.
That's exactly what they're telling me.
Right, but that's not coming from the top down. It's coming from principals saying, I think this is the best way.
You might want to just have that conversation. And I'm not going to go down that road again, except to say, if that's where we were headed again, I sure don't want to come up here as it was a year ago and a week before school starts, saying we spent $300,000 that I didn't know about.
Right.
If they're going to do that again, and I don't even think that's the case.
Yeah.
But if so, we need to know. I think the board needs to know that if that's what happens again.
I'm not dipping into high school textbooks.
Because we're all talking money here.
As a matter of fact, I think just the last conversation I had with Andrea was that we as a school system had kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit with high schools, and that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carroll, but I think the bulk of our textbook funds this year were going to be going towards high school textbooks.
All of the textbook monies in the allotment for this year will go into unit-wide, and Andrea said that she wanted to look at high school, I believe, in middle school.
Right.
So I think the plan, as I understand it, is to spend more money on.
Oh, right, that's what I heard from some, at a high school level, that they have not
You got
had
them in the
any
room,
textbook
you might
money.
want to just check.
I'll be glad to.
Okay,
And any
that's fine.
balances that the schools have not used in their allotment since they lost the flexibility would go up into that unit-wide curriculum to cover some of those.
I know the high schools are really lacking in some required reading.
So looking at this, you've saved $236,000, something like that. Gone back and cut, is that?
Well, I'll go quickly. There are areas that we didn't have last time. lapse salary for Dr. Phipps. We are able, exceptional children, I want to talk a little bit about that. In the past, the EC department has been able, with the expansion we're making in Ed Tech in terms of the elementary classroom at Ed Tech and the 2 middle schools, the EC department is going to be able to pick up yet another teacher salary for us because it's an alternative program. So that's $60,000. It's not on here because it wasn't in our original budget, but those rooms also need to be furnished. They need to be equipped with technology desks, literally furnished, to the tune of about $40,000. EC is going to be able to pick up that as well. So I didn't put 40 in addition and then take it away because it's the swap essentially, but that's money. Normally I would be coming back to you saying, now I need more money for these furnishings, more money for this technology. So luckily that expansion will be paid for out of EC funds. So and also spoke to Mark Malick. I know Mark has a plan for being able to refurbish technology. One of the areas that Mark's worked with is many years ago, apparently there were grants in-house given to teachers. If you were one of the first teachers who wrote a grant who said, I'm going to use computer technology in my classroom, then we gave you a set of computers that you could use. Since then, those have kind of been folded in, depending on the schools, of the school's computers. Some of them are still just in those teachers' classrooms for use by them and anybody else. Mark had a replacement schedule for those computers. That was above and beyond when Mark tells you all the things. And trust me, if you can get $1 out of Mark Malick, you have done a great job. But so this is all above and beyond what he normally does for replacements, etc. But he did say, I could live without $50,000 that we normally take at a fund date if you absolutely have to take it from me. So that's where I'm getting that $50,000 above and beyond as usual. Now, yes, that means there are computers that we will not replace as quickly based on those grants. And that is what that means. But we were able to give him $100,000 above and beyond last year out of Fund 8. This year would be $50,000 instead of $100,000. So that brings us to an updated request of $537,429, which makes us in worse shape than we were before.
You're going the wrong way, Mark.
Yes, sir, but I'm going to try to fix that. So the next step that Mr. Cameron and I did, we went through every line item in the budget, and we looked at line items. Some line items had money associated with them, but they were no longer in use. And that doesn't mean that, since it's local, of course, that means we can shift them around. So first one, we looked at the transportation budget. And of local money given to transportation, if we are able to shave driver time by 10 minutes a day, reduce our total mileage driven by 10,000 miles, that will increase our efficiency rating, which would increase the amount of money the state gives us. Now, that $100,000 is a gamble. This is if we can do these things, if we can do them. What we're finding is we have been very generous when it comes to adding time to routes, adding students to routes, adding miles to routes. We're going to have some serious conversations with our principals. I understand if you're a principal, you like the buses to be there a certain time. I understand you want the bus driver, if there's nobody in the building, you can't let the kids go in unaccompanied. But that can't be on the back of transportation. We're going to have to rearrange some schedules so employees get there when the buses get there. Same holding buses in the afternoon. Yeah, I understand it's very convenient, and if you're a good principal, you will couch everything under school safety. No matter what it is, it's school safety. I don't want to dismiss kids. I don't want to put anybody in danger. I don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. But we're holding buses in the afternoons. We can redo some of that. And yes, it's going to be a little bit of inconvenience and a change, but we can make that change. And if we can do that, that's the time I'm talking about. It's not making bus drivers drive faster or not picking up kids the way we've been doing. It's shaving off time that we're staying at school. And it's also shaving off miles where, you know, there are requests, there are travels, there are issues that we do. Sometimes it's easier for a school, it's field trip day. We want to run down to the pumpkin patch. Let's just grab a yellow bus because somebody forgot to request a white bus, and somebody's got to come over here and get the white bus. The yellow bus is on our parking lot. Let's just take it. Well, that adds to the mileage that affects our efficiency rating. Those are things we can do. Now, long term, this is phase 1. Phase 2 is coming back to you for not this school year, but future school years, and talking about sharing more buses between schools, right, changing start and end times, but it is too late in the year to start talking about that now. But that is coming in order to, if we don't get our efficiency rating up, we'll never save you money in transportation. Now, while I'm on that subject, I don't have a dollar figure attached because I won't know until the end of this year how much money we've saved. But we have these fleet cars that, and you can see the age of the car, You can see the annual miles driven in 17-18. You can see their current odometer rating. We are one of the last remaining school systems in North Carolina that has a fleet. And the way that has been beneficial to us is we have drove the wheels off these cars. And we have kept them, and you can see by the odometer ratings, we have kept them to the point that they are long past, in terms of their cost, we have made the most of their cost efficiency. But the problem is they are getting to the point of beyond repair. They're getting to the point of age. At one point, Jerry tells me there was a transportation plan in past where you replaced a car every time it got over 100,000 miles. And you can see how many of these cars that would be if we were to replace all the ones that are 100,000 or close to it. So our fleet, and I'm not talking about the cars, vans, and trucks that are assigned to child nutrition, transportation, maintenance, technology. I'm not talking about those departments. I'm talking about when our homebound teachers, instead of paying them mileage, they're able to come and check out a car. If a teacher goes to a workshop, if somebody from Building 4 goes to a school, these are the fleet, the white cars, those are the ones I'm talking about. And we already have in place a system that if you don't want to check out a car, you can drive your own car, but we penalize you on the mileage. You take a smaller mileage rate. Most of our folks do not. Now, there's always going to be a small minority who never want to drive their own car, ever. They'll take anything we have because they don't want to drive their own car. The vast majority of our folks look at our cars, look at the age of our cars, and say, I'm not sure I can risk taking that to New Bern. I'll just drive my own car. So what I'm proposing as part of this budget proposal tonight is for you to allow us to sell these cars, get rid of the fleet, and go with the state rate of mileage. And I can't tell you a number right now because we've never done it. But we believe that at the end of the year, we can look back and say, if you add up the time it took to the administrative time, the tires, the insurance, you name it, the mechanic, all the things that are associated with the fleet, that we've done better to get rid of the fleet than to keep it.
Well, we talked about that before.
We did, and it was economical because we drove the wheels off of them.
But we said there was nobody around us doing this, so there had to be something to it.
And and they all said the same thing, which is y'all have kept them way longer than anybody else does. Is the only way that you've made it work.
You gonna sell them out here at your yard sale?
We are going to have Crazy Jerry's used cars out front, just like we did before with the other trucks and vans. So there will be a yard sale right out front.
I think you should have done it a long time ago myself, but.
Well, we are doing it now with your permission. So, all right. General operations. In the past, we had a couple of innovative classrooms. Those are great, nothing wrong with that, but that's not something we plan to continue at this time. Operation of plant. I asked Stan to look at a list of things that the maintenance department handled in 17-18 that theoretically fell under capital. Again, these are things that had to be done, but you can see that you spent $94,722 out of your local budget on issues that were technically capital items, or certainly could have been capital items. And of course, the reason we spent that money is, number one, they needed to be done, and number two, there wasn't enough money in capital to do it. But there are times when we said, we'll take that out of the maintenance budget. Well, that's the problem when you take it out of the maintenance budget. Right. So I asked Stan, much like Mark Malick, tried hard to get $1 out of, how much you could live with. I could get 50,000. I put 100 on there, and then Stan got nervous on me, so I stuck with 50 because it will certainly have unexpected maintenance costs. Board of Education, we looked through the Board of Education. There were a couple of line items, new materials, new technology, legislative rep. Those are items that we've had money in but were not used. This does not take away from your money. Obviously, as board members, you have to get professional development. So I'm not talking about that money that you go to school board conference or other venues. I'm talking about items that weren't used in the past, or last year, I should say the past, last year. So that's how we arrived at that number. That also includes everything from supplies, sometimes the board, to board meals, shaving those kinds of things back. SACs, we did not have a school improvement. We were not in school improvement. We didn't have to do accreditation, so that was money that we'd set aside for accreditation. Superintendent's office went through that. Certain conferences, workshops, materials, able to trim that by $5,000. Our discretionary allotment, this is the money that goes to the schools. This is the money that we dole out. Willie Mack has a formula where he looks at the number of students you have, multiply that by $23. This is where you get to cover copier costs, you name it, whatever you use for your discretionary spending. Last year, there was a one-time purchase of PE equipment of John Small, a one-time purchase of some online software that we're no longer using, and a one-time tutor payment that was separate and above any other tutors that we used. If you carve those line items out and assume we won't use them this year, that's another 13.5. And then salary reimbursements, this is something we had to do in the past for a salary issue that's no longer present, so that's another 30,000 that was a line item, but we don't have to spend. So what that comes down to is a grand total of a request of $272,978 as opposed to 508 or 537.
What's the budget for the Board of Education? Was it 250?
216.
216.
216.
216. So we're looking at 200,000 still for the Board of Education. I'm not sure where that money's going to.
Well,
We
the
don't.
bulk of that is legal, if I'm
Well,
not mistaken.
I was going to ask you a question about that, but I'm going to let Michael finish first.
Well, no, I'm just wondering how that's broken down. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, under
That
that,
50,000 is your audit.
Because you pay for the audit of the schools.
Okay, that stuff's come out of that.
but the legal, 80,000. What was, I mean,
Good night.
let's talk about the legal a second. It was 86,000, we used 76,000, so let's just call it 75,000 to $80,000.
You have the.
I understand why we have to have legal, but I was also told, remember a while back, well, maybe, I don't know who was here, who wasn't, but it's been a few years back, we talked about principals, how they just can call directly in. Does anybody remember exactly how that worked?
Yeah.
Maybe you could, without, at one time there was a sort of a check system in place, and then they opened it up where principals, if they had a legal question they needed to know now, they called a lawyer. How much are we doing of that? Because for out of a $200,000 budget, for 75 to 80,000 being legal, we used to didn't have a budget like that for legal. I mean, I've been here 8 years, and I know at one time it wasn't anything near that. Not even close. Well, it might be this year. I guess it depends on if you get sued or not.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying.
I would have to. I'd have to
Isn't there
break
something
down-
that
I mean, I
different
can
about
certainly-
that?
We can look at between Darrington Smith and Miss Edwards, we could look at their bills and break down how much of that is calls made from, whether it's my department, whether it's student services or individual schools.
And I'm not saying stop that.
Right.
I'm just saying, let's take a look at it, because that is a huge number
We
to
can
me.
certainly.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Additional invoice that came in on legal for, I believe it's close to $7,000 for the month of June. So your 75,000, 76,000 is about 84.
Yeah, we actually showed 86, but we didn't use all the money, so that's why I broke it back. But obviously, it's the largest line on the Board of Education.
Right.
And, we talked about that last time. So, I mean, I don't know, it just seems like there's something we can be different there. I mean, I know who we have our first go-to person. I just would like to know, and I'm not sure how you can put it together, but how much do we talk to local versus how much do we talk to Darrington and Smith?
We can
And
break down the bills. It'll just.
is local talking, do we ask local something that they don't know, so they call Darrington and Smith? And so I don't want to be paying two sets of lawyers.
Sure.
Because I mean, I hear lots of different things. I just want to know.
Okay.
That's a huge number, and we need to know that.
I don't have it handy. but
I know you don't, I know, but I'm just saying, we just need to make sure that's not going on. I mean, we need to pay one, but we don't need to pay everybody. I did have one other question.
Okay.
Did you talk to Jerry Wynn? You said the 100 is kind of iffy, you don't know? Wouldn't he have a good idea about that?
Well,
He's the
Jerry-
transportation director.
Yeah, no, that number is absolutely from Jerry Wynn.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
okay.
No, the reason it's iffy is because you're changing behavior.
Does he think he can do it, I guess, because
Well,
Jerry's
he would
told us
say-
he says he's as lean as he can be.
He would say it's not on him to do it, can our schools do it? Because his biggest issue is drivers arriving early in the morning holding kids, drivers holding kids in the afternoon as part of the dismissal process, requests where we say, boy, it'd be nice if we change this route to accommodate this. I mean, or our schools, again, taking the yellow bus without going through the proper procedure, take a white bus. I mean, Jerry, I'm confident in saying, he would say, he's sure if we follow all the rules, we can save that 100,000. The question is, will everybody follow those rules and stay? Because it's going to have to be a priority to make sure we do that.
Well, taking the yellow bus is pretty easy to stop. That's not a big issue.
Yes, it is. Yes.
You think it is easy? You think it's
No,
not?
no, I don't
That's
think.
easy to stop.
That's the easiest option that you mentioned.
Yeah, I agree, that is easy.
The other options are changing behavior,
That's
Terry,
right.
and that's very hard.
That's going to be the big one.
Yes.
So if
Right.
he's finding that they're holding students for a long time, can't he change he can change the bus schedules as long as it doesn't affect bail times.
Yes, he can, but, I think what we have done in the past is we have said, okay, we've just basically taken at face value that, I understand what you're saying, that's a safety issue, move on. And what we're saying is, because again, good principles couch everything under safety. I mean, they just do.
Well, I know a couple of years ago, they stopped in front of my house for Sam every single day, and he wasn't using the bus.
Right.
So I was wondering why every single day they just stopped in front of our house.
Part of that is making sure route sheets are correct. I mean, obviously, transportation is a huge part of what we do and a very important part, but a lot of times, after it gets rolling, I think it gets lost in the shuffle. If you have enough bus drivers, if your parents are happy, if your kids are all getting to school, then it becomes less of a focus as the years go on, and that's when things like this happen.
I know I know at Eastern and possibly Taylor, aren't most of your drivers also TAs?
They are.
And so there's only so much wiggle room in there because they're in the classroom.
They are, but I mean, they're
Got to be.
for them, but that's not really an issue there because they're getting there right as they're dropping students off, parking the bus, sweeping the bus, going on to the classroom. For some schools, that's not an issue at all.
But at the end of the day, it can be.
It can be, yes.
Because you're really asking the TA to leave the classroom early.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the, I mean, the same thing's going to happen with, if we say we have to have buses, let's say it is a true issue that we have to dismiss in order to do it this way, we need buses to be held, then, okay, are we going to have a teacher assistant or somebody else supervise the students versus the bus driver doing it? I mean, you are taking out, okay, so now we're going to take away from the time and money of teacher assistants versus bus drivers. But if you're Jerry, you're concerned with the bus driver, not the teacher assistant.
Right, and if you're the principal, you're
We're just happy if they all get on the bus and get home safely.
there you go.
But you've got to be concerned about all the details.
But I'm like Terry, even if that came directly from Jerry, that's a high expectation. I would love to see it happen.
Well, this is a working number. This is not, I mean, there will be, I'm sure, many more changes that I'll have to come back to you throughout the year.
Because I have a feeling that 272 is going to grow to about 350.
Well, I'm happy to say that last year you approved 350 and we were able to only use 200. So hopefully we can find savings along the way to take care of some of those things. But that's where we sit today. If nothing else happens between now and the time you vote.
Well, yeah, we don't need to beat it all night. I have one or two more questions. Let's turn the lights. Can we turn the lights on? I mean, everybody can see. We got this on our screen. Okay, so now that we know how much you...
Yeah, we're saving.
Well, I just wanted to make sure he saw this.
Save 93 cents.
So we know how much we want to save. So now my question is changing over to what are we paying for? And you know, when we had this sheet that shows we were adding in a technology person.
Right.
We were adding in mental health, and we were adding in an elementary mental health teacher. So is all of that staying the same is what I'm asking. So we're cutting the bottom line, and it came from money that doesn't affect this, so we're still getting these people.
You are still, assuming you approve this, you are still getting everything that's on this page, you are still getting.
I have concerns that, do we really need another technology person? Really?
The instructional technology facilitator?
Yeah.
I believe.
Is that a wish list, or is that really something that is a high demand? And I hate to use Stan as an example, but there are things that probably need to be fixed that salary would fix, that in my opinion might be a higher priority than one more person as a facilitator.
I think with I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's a wish list, I think it's a priority.
Why?
Because I think the amount that we're asking our teachers do to integrate technology in the classroom, to differentiate, the amount of resources, to me, again, I go back to if I were a classroom teacher. So now you've given me, if I'm fortunate enough to be at a school that has technology, or even if I'm not, I at least have a computer and a projector in my room and a smart board. And I have been tasked with integrating technology into my curriculum, differentiating what I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't have the time to do all the things I need to do and professional development for myself on how to do that. And Paul Huggins is one man. He's tasked with not only doing computer repair to help out technology when he can, but leading the instructional technology focus and professional development. And I think we're asking our people to have a very high standard and high bar of integrating technology, and I think they need the help to do it. And I think that's what this position is for.
Okay, my question wouldn't be that. is the way we're going about it. And, you know, I asked you last meeting, so this is no surprise. It was a $55,000 position, and now it's a $27,000 because someone else in another department, you know.
Picked up, yes, sir.
Right, said they'd pick it up. But as my concern was, that's just like what we get stuck with grants. We have these grants that come down, and people say, oh, it's free money, and the grant allows us to hire a person for 1 year.
And then year 3 comes.
And then we have to pay for him for the rest of his life till we either fire him or kill him.
That is you're absolutely correct.
Okay, so,
Yes.
you know, this is, to me, this is just smoke and mirrors. You need to just take that 27 out and say 55, because next year nobody's going to come write us a check for $38,000 or whatever the amount would be.
Well, I sure hope.
You know what I'm
but
saying?
I have no guarantee.
And I know that. And I mean, I'm not directing it at you. I'm asking of you.
You are absolutely right.
Because that's all that is. We're proving a position that we don't have money to pay for.
And I think
All
it
of these
almost
are
has to be a
positions-
year-to-year basis.
I mean, all of these positions are based on these three, the instructional technology, now the certified teacher at elementary EC is picking up. But yes, because we're able to make some changes through federal money could change. It absolutely could be reduced. And if that were the case, I'd be coming back to you and saying exactly that. We can't pay for this out of federal money now.
And there's one other thing I think you need to make the board aware of tonight, and that's the other position that I don't see on here. And that's the stands in his department for the CLIM. Well, it doesn't have to be him, but for the contract person outside as a part-time to replace the full-time person that left under Russ Gerganis' salary. And so he's not had anybody for doing his certifications and safety and stuff ever since then. And
That is correct.
the board told us to, you remember the board said, go talk to this person about a contract, and we said it'd be $20,000 to $30,000. So let's cut it in the middle and say $25,000. But that's way better than hiring a $60,000 full-time person to replace Mr. Gerganis that left. That's not in here.
That's because.
So I don't want you to come back next week and say, we haven't added that, so now we told you to go do a contract, but now we got to pay for it.
Right.
And that's a position that we need.
Well, I look back to last year, the biggest reason that we were able to not use $350,000 of fund balance was because we had lapsed salaries. Now, that's
That's right.
not a good thing. Please don't think I want us to be not fully staffed.
Right.
But history has shown in my 4 years here that there will be years, I can't imagine that we would be fully staffed throughout the entire year. And so our plan to pay for the contract to work with maintenance is coming based on future lapsed salary, which I believe we'll have.
So it doesn't need to be in
including
here.
this.
So it doesn't need to be in here. Okay, that's a good explanation. That's fine. I still don't like the way we're doing this one, though. I mean, it's just me. I'm sorry.
You tell me what you want to change, and I'll change it.
Well, the only thing I could say.
Any position in any of the programs, state and federal, are subject for funding shift based on allotment and enrollments and how many people go after the grant in any given year.
Okay.
So, granted, it's rare probably for any one department to be able to handle the same staff all the way through the grant cycle. Right now, we're looking at utilizing the position allotments or the months of employment to shift our higher dollar teachers over to those, so we're paying the dollar allotment teachers, the lower paid ones, out of our dollar allotment. Greg and the federal programs will say, okay, Willie, I've got, $75 or $55 or $57,000 teacher that's going to impact my budget. Do you have a lower paid position allotment that we can move and that can free up some federal money? And if you can, we can do this, but yes, we can also do this other piece as well. So there's been some give and take within the department, within their funding for the program.
Right. And
none of them are guaranteed.
And I understand that. And I'm just saying, I'll move on real quick. We'll do this, but I'm just saying, I want my concerns out there. Because every year when we get to this, here's what it all boils down to me. Every year we get to this point, we come up and we start, the first line, we start by saying we're losing 7 teaching positions in state, we're losing 4 teaching, I think I got it backwards, 4 positions in state, and we're losing 7 teaching positions in local.
Yes, sir.
Which means we're losing 11 teachers. But yet, we're going to add this person in, and we're going to do it, though, based on we hope we have the money to pay for them next year. And then when you don't have the money to pay for them next year, you come back, not you, but a person, comes back to us and says, probably it's going to be you.
It'll be you.
Well, we might have a new superintendent by then, I don't know. But they're going to come back to us and say, well, the money didn't come in, so we're gonna lose another teaching position. I don't want, that's the kind of thing that worries me. I don't like continuing to build up some places based on the backs of losing teaching positions. So I'm just going on record. I'm one person. I see a whole bunch of board members here. I'm just going on record. I don't like putting in positions that you can't afford. I believe it is sound advice. The board should never, ever vote to put in a new reoccurring expense that they don't know how they're going to pay for. I don't buy a car at home if I know I can't pay for it next year. My wife may say we got enough money to pay for it this year, Terry. Hope we do next year. Well, then we don't buy it. Just saying.
What I
That's
would
just
say
my
is,
feelings.
if the board approved that position and if the
drive a
funds
bus.
were not there, then we could reassign the person into a vacant teaching position. I mean, that is
Probably 10
possible.
minutes early.
I think most of us
Later.
have talked about how we don't want
Okay, I'm done.
to lose,
Let's go.
we don't want to lose teachers.
Sure.
We don't want to lose the mental health. In fact, if I could, I would eliminate the technology facilitator and put two mental health, one on the south side of the river, one on the north side of the river. Because one person is not going to be able to do what we expect them to do,
Right.
but we're going to start somewhere.
Sure,
But,
but we absolutely hope this is the starting point and not the end, absolutely.
And Michael, has there been any traction on, no?
The grant?
Yeah.
No,
We
we'll
did
probably look at
receive,
February.
information today about the state grant, but it is non-reoccurring, it's 1 year only, and it is money for counselors, mental health, we are applying, but it's 1 year only from the state.
Well, I.
And it may not be a person, it may be, it's everything from added programs, added training for counselors, so it is not just all just trying to hire a person.
But if it adds a person, even at a year, if at the end of the year we see an impact that that person has made,
Sure.
then we would find the funding, but,
Well, like I said, we could always reassign the person, the technology facilitator at the end of the year if the funds ran out. We said we can't afford that anymore. I would not, I'd be shocked if we didn't have a vacancy somewhere, that person.
that they would call me.
I mean, there would be a teacher pay.
So you're not putting this on the hook as a permanent thing?
No, I mean, I believe we would have a vacancy. I mean, unless just a miracle occurred, we had 0 vacancies, then I can't imagine we couldn't find a position, put this person in if we weren't able to pay for it again next year.
We're gonna do such
But-
a good job this year, nobody's.
Dream on.
I mean,
But you're absolutely right, that it's not permanent. It's a
Okay.
1 year.
there's certain hypotheticals that we have to deal with
Sure.
just based off of when we're financed, so.
I agree.
We can sit here for 4 more hours and talk about it, or we can go ahead and make a decision.
So you need,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
The fleet of vehicles, is this the entire fleet?
This is the entire fleet.
Less what's down here that it says is not included?
That's, the superintendent's vehicle is not on there.
Yes,
What's not
it's-
included at the bottom. That is the entire fleet.
cars, vans,
Um,
signs.
I just question getting rid of the entire fleet. Maybe keep a few of them.
Well, I mean, there are ones we would like to swap out, say in other departments, for some of the cars they're driving are in worse shape than some of those.
Okay, all right, well, I guess that was my concern, is
Yeah,
if we've got some.
guys are on 3 wheels and it's like Fred Flintstone, you can see the
Yeah. I was thinking
statement, so we're gonna
if you
swap
got one
out
that-
some of those.
You got one that goes down, it'd be nice to have one to back it up.
Right, that's the point.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You've got 2 or 3 that are a little newer than.
Right. But we'll be swapping those out for older ones in those other departments.
So what do you want motion for, Matt?
Motion to approve the revised fund balance appropriation, including the transportation and the sale of the fleet.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. A motion and a second. Are there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's the same, right?
No.
Opposed? Okay. One opposed, did we get that? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're
You sure
gonna,
it's based
thank you,
What you said about that stuff.
Because I know it already. I know it.
Mr. Superintendent,
Yes, sir.
thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
I need, yes, ma'am, I need to entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that we go into closed session to prevent the disclosure of privileged information under North Carolina General Statute 115C-319 and 321, personnel records, and to consult with our attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, which privilege is hereby acknowledged. and to consult with our attorney to consider and give instructions concerning a potential or actual claim, administrative procedure, or judicial action. The title of the action is 18 CVS, not the drugstore, 157 NERSBA versus Beaufort County Schools.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to, are there any discussion? Hearing none, motion accepted.
You said a mouthful there.
Okay, I need to obtain a motion to accept the personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none, motion accepted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, motion accepted.
All right, 6.2 is the transportation plan for NERSBA. I'll turn it over to Ms. Edwards to
Yes, sir.
take it from there.
General Statute 115C 23872 requires participating units in a regional school to develop a plan to provide transportation to the students domiciled in the district. And that's really the only guidance that you guys are given. And you know that you've been providing transportation to students enrolled in NERSBA, but you've never really had a written plan, a written transportation plan. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to adopt at this time. We've had a number of issues on the bus regarding student discipline, issues with bus drivers not knowing what students were supposed to be on the bus and who was supposed to be riding the bus, students coming from other counties. So what I prepared are two options for you to consider. You've got the options before you, and I'll accept any questions that you may have.
Well, I mean, we're just looking over those options. I know over the last couple of years, I've had several parents of students over there have contacted me, and they haven't been real happy with the way, the transportation's been handled. And so I think we definitely need a change to try to make it better. Well, we definitely need to do anything we can to make it a better situation for the students at NERSBA and to make it a better experience for them. So looking at these options, I won't make the motion until I hear some folks, but I mean, I like number 2. I like option 2 better than I do 1.
I definitely like option 2 better.
Because of the issues that you've said, and we've had to replace bus drivers and whatnot, option 2 would definitely serve NERSBA better as well, because it would give them control.
Right.
I make a motion, we go with option 2.
Yeah, it puts the control
Second.
back in the hands of NERSBA.
That's right.
It has been moved and properly second that we will accept option 2.
Okay, somebody want to state what that is? Do you want me to state it for you?
You want me to read it?
Okay, sure.
Beaufort County Schools will give NERSBA 2 school buses. NERSBA will have control over the only element of the bus, maybe you should have read it. NERSBA will have control over the only element of the bus, of the school, that they don't currently control. NERSBA will hire the bus drivers and establish bus routes, and NERSBA will handle bus discipline. NERSBA will receive transportation reimbursement from Department of Public Instruction.
That's correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? All right. Second.
Option 2 it is.
Thanks a lot. Is that me?
Are we,
Yeah, that's a motion.
you looking for a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we will adjourn the meeting for July 17th. All those in favor?
Aye. When's our next?